Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the latest edition of Terrace Talk. It's another tight turnaround from last night's sort of disappointing cup defeat against Fulham, but a positive performance from Norwich City's second string side. I suppose the focus is now on Saturday in Birmingham City, and with that, delighted to be joined by Gab Sutton, an EFL expert and Birmingham City fan. Gab, going to get straight into it. Last season, 17th finished. Longest serving team in the championship. I think a lot of people could probably make assumptions that it's going to be another sort of average season for Birmingham, but it feels like there's a bit more of a buzz around the place at the moment. A relatively new ownership coming into the club and taking control, and Tom Brady involved in that, which is sort of been circulating on social media. And it feels like maybe the mood at St Andrews is kind of, I suppose, perked up a little bit in retrospect to previous seasons. Would you agree with that assessment? And what's maybe the mood, I suppose, amongst the fans at the moment?
I would agree with it, and I would probably go as far as to say it's perked up would almost be an understatement, because I think for the last 30, 40 years, probably in living memory for a lot of Blues fans, we've always had ownership issues. Maybe for a period during the Golden and the Sullivan's reigns, they did some good work. But I think this is a new level. Like, I'm really excited about what Tom Wagner can do, because as soon as he came in, he communicated clearly with fans. He told us what he wanted to do with this football club, and he's got a vision and bringing some transparency to the club, and as well as the investment to go with that. But for me, that's what us Blue Noses have just been crying out for, because there's been over 10 years of neglect now. We've sort of been languishing towards the bottom of the championship for most of the last 12 years or so, the occasional top half finish. But do you know what? Even if we've had a good one-off season, and we've had some good half moments under Gary Rowett and under Gary Monk in that time, but it's never really felt sustainable, because we've had good managers. Even Chris Hughton, you'd go back to the 11-12 season, he's not especially popular with your lot. They've all been working with their hands tied, Adam. And I think what's great now is that we've got something that's really sustainable. And in a way, this might sound a bit weird, I don't know, but it's as if the takeover for me is almost more of a success or more of a triumph for the club than actually promotion. Because if we'd gone up under BIHL, there's no way we would have actually sustained anything. Like, we could have had a great one-off season where everything fell into place under the previous regime, but there'd have been no concrete underneath that, and that's what you need for sustained success. So I just think there's a real sense of excitement around the place. There's not even a huge amount of expectation at the moment, although the expectation has gone up a little bit, but it's just a mood of excitement really about the journey ahead, and hopefully it's going to be a big one.
Yeah, you speak about the expectation there and maybe just gradually improving. Where would you maybe expect Birmingham to finish this season? I think a relatively good transfer window from the looks of it on the outside. Some relatively known championship players as well, the likes of Ethan Laird and Tyler Roberts. Serki Dembele, Jay Stansfield seems to have fitted into championship life quite well. So where do you maybe pitch Birmingham in the championship this season?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think you're absolutely spot on to say we've recruited really well this summer, and I think because of that, just watching us in all our games so far, I'm very confident at this stage in saying there's going to be more than 3 worse teams than us in this league, and that's a lovely position to be in, because we've had times where you're looking at Rotherham, you're looking at Barnsley, and then you're trying to find who's the crisis clubs, and I suppose it's really nice to sort of say we don't, touch wood, obviously, we don't really have to worry about that this season, because I've got a lot of confidence in this team. Now, there's a world in which, based on how we've been playing so far this season, that we go massively ahead of schedule and end up having a bit of an adventure and going for the playoffs. I don't think that's wholly unrealistic. But at the same time, I don't think there's a pressure to do that, certainly not for this season. I think the aim is top half will be great after a 17th place finish last year. If we can continue to develop some young players, maybe bring in 1 or 2 through our academy and invest in some talent like we are doing, then I think that lays some great foundations for future seasons. So really, it's top half, hopefully a bit of a cup run if we can get that. And then, just continue to develop and build some foundations. Because I'm not sure we'd necessarily be ready for promotion if we did go up. But no, I think we're making some real progress for sure.
Yeah, I mentioned a few of the signings there. 12 of them through the door at St Andrews. Much like Norwich, lots of new signings to kind of pick the bones out of. Maybe which one stood out so far? I mean, Stansfield kind of feels like maybe the one that's kind of getting the headlines in the media. Is he the one to watch out for maybe on Saturday?
Adam, you've hit the nail on the head. He's been absolutely outstanding, because since we had Che Adams, who had a really good season under Gary Monk in 18-19, I think he scored at Carrow Road that season. You did beat us, but since then we've not really had any pace up top, and it's been really strange that we've not addressed that in that time. And for a while we've had either Scott Hogan or Lucas Jutkovic, who are kind of bottom half championship strikers. Really, both have their strengths, but neither of them really excite me, I guess. Whereas I think what we've had with Stansfield, even though he's kind of been playing as a second striker, just that injection of pace and possibly even exuberance as well, because this is the first time Stansfield is playing at this level, and he's always looking to run in beyond, and it just. Adam, it's like it's had this effect where it's kind of created space for the rest of the team, because he's taking people with him, and then you've got chances for Bielik and Bakuna to sort of step on second balls, and we can sustain some pressure that way. And I think that's had a massive impact on the performance levels that we've seen, and why some of the other players have been able to come into it. Whereas I can think of in previous seasons where with just Hogan and Jutkovic as the outball, it's been a bit. Whereas with Stansfield, it just brings the energy levels up, and it's got everyone really excited. So I think you're absolutely right to bring Stansfield up as really the star man so far.
Yeah, currently 10th in the championship, 3 wins, 3 draws, 2 defeats so far. Maybe dipped a little bit in recent weeks, but what have you made of the start to the campaign? Is it kind of matched where you thought they'd be, or what's the performance levels, I suppose, been like as well? Because that's kind of often the indicator at the start of the campaign.
I'd say maybe a little bit better, possibly, than even I was expecting, even though there was a fair amount of optimism going into the season. You say results have dipped. I would say that in the defeats to Watford, I think that was quite an even game, and they got a couple of goals in injury time. Preston, I think we were the better team for large spells, and then just kind of capitulated late on, which was a little bit disappointing that we haven't been able to manage the end of those games. But against QPR, I think we created by far the better chances. Koji Miyoshi looks really exciting as well, sort of cutting in from that left-hand side. Both the fullbacks I really like as well, because they're quite agile. They can go either way, Cody Dramé and Lee Buchanan. I'm pretty happy that even though it's just 1 point for a possible 9 in terms of the last 3 games, I'm happy with performances, and that's the main thing, really.
How's John Eustace viewed now by Birmingham fans? I think, a relatively, I suppose, disappointing campaign, but 17th is maybe where Birmingham have kind of expected themselves to be in recent years. But has he maybe had to adapt with new signings, new players that maybe he wanted for the system? And what's he now viewed like by the Birmingham faithful?
Yeah, I can understand why you'd say 17th was a disappointing season on paper, but I think, Adam, what you have to remember is last season, expectation was just on the floor. And I think there was quite a lot of apathy among Blues fans, because it's like we could stay up for another year and sort of grind our way to 19th, but it doesn't really get you excited, because it's like, well, what are we going to do after that? And so actually, I actually thought we might get relegated last season, because especially for large parts of some of the squad was looking threadbare, and that's kind of what Eustace inherited. And actually, he did quite well, because we started well. We're kind of in the playoff mix around October time. We had a bit of a dip and 4 months where the form wasn't great. But then he actually found a formula. He actually dropped Hannibal Menchbury, who's now impressing for Man United. And for some reason, that formula kind of clicked into place. We had sort of Hall running off Djukovic, and the last few months the form kind of improved. But he didn't have much depth to work with at all. And you're looking at sort of a combination of veterans or players who weren't quite good enough for the level, or teenagers to sort of come off the bench. And that's not really the kind of thing that's going to change a game. So you kind of forgive him a little bit for the poor form, because I think it was a difficult time. This season, with the 12 additions that we've made, the squad depth is looking a lot stronger, and you're looking at, and you've got options across the park, really. I think last season was a good 7 out of 10 first season for Eustace. I think he's implemented a clear style. He's improving individuals, and I think this season it's about building on that, and now I fully trust him to do that.
Yeah, a few connections between the two sides. Of course, Onel Hernandez and Shemi Plaheta, both ex-Birmingham players. But the one I kind of want to focus in on is a Birmingham City goalkeeper who was well known and well loved in the parish of Norwich. John Ruddy seems like he was kind of one of the star performers last campaign for Birmingham. Kind of got linked with some moves towards sort of bottom half Premier League clubs, I believe, in the summer transfer window that's just gone. But seems like he started the campaign well again. What's he brought to Birmingham? Is his leadership maybe something that's a quality that's well loved, I suppose, by Birmingham fans?
Yeah, he was arguably player of the season. We had Austin Trusty on loan from Arsenal, who did quite well at left back and would be another sort of contender for that. Excuse me. But yeah, John Ruddy was right up there as well, and he had a great season, and certainly his experience has helped. Is he a top 6 championship goalkeeper? I'm not 100% sure on that. I would think maybe next season, if our expectations rise a little bit, I would kind of maybe wonder about possibly going big on that area of the field. But I think at the moment we're happy with John Ruddy, albeit big clean sheet last time out. We would like him to maybe iron out some of the errors that we maybe saw from him at Watford and Preston North End. But no, I think he's a solid goalkeeper, and I think he'll do for what we're trying to achieve this season.
Yeah, before we get into the game, just want to get your take on how Norwich have started the campaign. I know you kind of done lots of previews with various Norwich types before the start of the campaign and maybe made some predictions, but 8 games in, how do you think they've kind of stacked up compared to what you maybe thought? I mean, obviously Josh Sargent, Ashley Barnes, both of them being injured seems to have had a little bit of an impact, but in the last few games have been a little bit disappointing, particularly the last Saturday's game at Plymouth. But chance to bounce back. What have you made of us more generally from what you've seen?
I'm kind of mixed feelings on Norwich, because there's one part of me that's thinking Norwich are actually ahead of where a lot of fans were expecting before the season. Expectations in pre-season, by the way, seem to be quite conservative, I think, to put it mildly. So actually for Norwich to have, I think it's 13 points from your first 8 games, I actually think that's a decent position to be in. However, I think there's a little bit of a concern from what I can see that in the last 4 games or so, teams have been able to cut Norwich open, and maybe there's that danger that certain sides might be able to smell blood a little bit after that 6-2 loss at Plymouth Argyle. Because I remember when David Wagner came in last season, there was this electric start where you went 4-0 at Preston North End and looked amazing, and then 3 goals in the first 11 minutes, I think it was, at Coventry, and it's wow. And then after about 8 games, the sort of form and performances seemed to drop, and maybe the mental fragility that we've seen from the last couple of seasons came back in. But I hope that David Wagner can show the adaptability required to maybe just shut out some of the problems that we saw at Home Park last time out, and keep Johnny Rowe in form, because he's had an amazing start, hasn't he?
Yeah, it seems like the competition will be growing in that area. Borja Sainz, of course, getting off the mark last night in the Cup, his first appearance. So certainly one that Johnny Rowe...
Do you think, Adam, that some of the players who played well at Fulham in midweek will get a chance on Saturday?
Yeah, I think there's a few that will be knocking on David Wagner's door. Plaheta, I thought, was another really solid performance from him last night. He seems like kind of... I think one thing with him was that his pace was always there, but sometimes when he got to the sort of box and you needed that ball across, it was kind of that pace. He'd almost outrun himself, and it was no chance to really provide the service that the players needed. But he seems to have kind of worked on that, and whether that's Narsas Pelash, the coach, seems like he's worked well with him, and there seems to be some real development in his games. I think he's one who could potentially be in the I suppose the mind of David Wagner for a start. Jaden Warner, the young centre back, he's certainly a man who stepped up to the mark last night at debut. Not necessarily saying he'll start, but I think, given there's been a few concerns over centre back sort of partnerships and leaking goals recently, I think he's got to be in the conversation for.
I suppose there's a mobility thing, isn't it? Because you've got veterans in Ben Gibson and Shane Duffy. So whether for the high line Wagner wants, whether going with the young centre back might actually work.
Yeah, I think Adam Forshaw as well, probably a man who's expecting to start on Saturday with the Ashley Barnes injury. It feels like maybe there's an option to move Sarah forward and Forshaw and McLean to kind of be the double in the midfield. So we'll see, but I'm looking forward to it and interesting to see what David Wagner's going to play. Going to now turn the attention forward to the game on Saturday. What are you thinking on this one, Gab? I mean, key man for both teams, where the kind of battles are going to be won and lost on this one. How do you feel it's going to go?
I think that there seems to be a little bit of apprehension around the Norwich fan base. And I almost feel like off the back of that 6-2 loss at Plymouth Argyle, I feel like the start to this game could be quite telling for Norwich, because I think if you start strongly, I think the fans will go with you. But I think if there's a bad start, I think there's a chance that Blues smell blood, especially with the pace of Stansfield and whether we could maybe catch out that high line if you're not 100% on it. So I actually think there's a bit of an opportunity for Blues here to maybe pile on some of the pressure on Norwich. So I'm going to go with I'm going to go with a 3-1 away win. I've got a feeling it might go our way, but it could swing your way. But that's what I'll go with.
Yeah, I'm certainly feeling the apprehension, despite Norwich kind of having a pretty good record against Birmingham. I think they're unbeaten in the last 10. Birmingham's last victory over Norwich was the 3-0 win August 2016. So it's been a while in coming, but hopefully Norwich can kind of maintain what's been a pretty good start at Carrow Road if you take away the Leicester game. So we'll see what we get. Really do appreciate your time this afternoon, Gab. Thanks for coming on and sharing some thoughts on Birmingham. And if you've enjoyed the show, of course, leave us a like here on YouTube. If you're not subscribed, then why not subscribe? We've got the Pink and Plus app as well, $1.99 for the first 2 months, $2.99 thereafter, or $29.99 for an annual subscription. Always a bit of a tongue twister to try and get that one out. We'll be at Carrow Road on Saturday for team news. David Wagner's press conference will be tomorrow morning at 11:30. So that will be out full on the Pink and YouTube channel tomorrow morning. So head over there later on and you'll be able to watch all of the thoughts and feelings of David Wagner ahead of this one. So really looking forward to it, and certainly looking forward to being back at Carrow Road as well. Feels like we need to get back there and get back to winning ways. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you very soon.